Okay, for the fifth and last part to my vacuum tube amplifier build, what I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to modify my new amplifier that you just saw completed in the last video, and I'm going to make it selectable between a triode and ultralinear. Now I could add a second switch and then I could have it switchable between a triode and ultralinear and pentrode, but I only have one switch here, so I'm going to use a double pole double throw switch to allow me to switch between the two most popular operational modes, which would be triode and ultralinear. And how it's done, if we look at the schematic here, we'll see to operate in triode mode, the G3 grid here, which is on pin number 4, is switched through a 180 ohm resistor, and it is basically connected to the plate, so that the plate voltage is also present on the G3 grid. To operate it in ultralinear mode, it is jumpered to the center tap, or the yellow lead off the primary of the transformer, and to operate it in pentrode mode, grid 3 is tied to B+. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding a switch to switch the input to resistor R17 between the pin 1 and pin 2 of your terminals on the amplifier. I'll show you. So if we look at the jumper selector, we'll find that normally the jumper is placed between, I have to remove the jumper here, this is the jumper there, right? Normally it's run between the selector and either pentrode, ultralinear, or triode. And as you can see, they're connected to the 3 terminals. One for pentrode, ultralinear, and, pentrode, ultralinear, and triode. So basically, the other side of the jumper connects to the resistor here. So what the modification is going to require doing is connecting the center tap of the switch to that connection there, which is going to my resistor that goes into the grid 3 of the tube, and then the other two sides of the switch are going to go to the triode and the ultralinear side. What I've got here, before I do this, I'm going to actually remove the tubes so that the tubes don't get damaged. So we'll remove the 2 power tubes and we'll put them back in their boxes. Actually, I'll remove all of the tubes, just because once I'm done with this modification, I'm going to be putting the top cover on it. So let's put all the tubes away. The proper way to remove a tube that's got a base on it is to actually lift it out by its base. You don't want to pull up on the glass. Put the 2 tubes away, and then the 2 small signal tubes will be removed, and we'll put them back in their boxes and store them out of the way where they're not going to get damaged. Now I can proceed with doing the modification. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep my switch, and I'm going to make the red lead, the one in the middle. I've got a 3 conductor, actually it's 4 conductor, but I just removed one. I'm going to make the red lead my center tap, or my center pole of the switch, which will be the one that gets toggled. So I'm just going to prep the wire and strip it and solder it to the terminals on the switch. And then we're going to put some heat shrink tubing around there, because this switch is going to have 300 volts on these terminals. So I want to make sure that no one's going to get a shock. Not that anybody's going to be working on this thing but me, but I want to make sure that when you're dealing with high voltages, you want to insulate everything that you possibly can. Okay, now we'll attach our wires. And I had to remove them there because I thought I had a bigger piece of heat shrink that I could have put over the whole thing, but I don't. So we're just going to reattach the 3 wires here. And I have 3 separate little pieces of heat shrink that I'll put over each individual wire and heat shrink them down. That way it'll prevent any possible short circuit that could happen. So there's the second wire. Again, get our heat shrink wires, or heat shrink tubing over top of the wires. Green one doesn't, I don't like the look of that green one. It's not touching anything, but it's kind of close. I want to make sure that it's not going to touch against the it's not going to touch against the bracket, because the bracket will be grounded. You don't want to cause any short circuits. At 302 volts or whatever it is, a short to ground would be catastrophic. Actually, it would just probably trigger the shutdown circuit on this thing, because it does have overcurrent shutdown for the plate. We want to make sure that we're not going to get into that situation. Okay, that's got our selector switch protected. We've got heat shrink tubing on all the high voltage leads to make sure that nothing is going to short out. Now we can go ahead and mount the switch. There was already a pre-existing hole in the back of the amplifier, so I'm going to use that hole and mount the switch on the back. So I'm just utilizing the hole that's already on the back here. Put my washer on and put the other nut on here. Now I can tighten down the switch. There we go. So I'm going to wire it for triode down, ultralinear up. So, off the wires here on the back, one's going to go to one side and one's going to go to the other. This one's going to come down here. I'm just going to shorten these wires so that they're approximately the right length, because we'll zap tie these things down as well. Actually, I don't even need to do that. I can just bring them around like that. When the switch is down, it's connecting to the green wire. So the green wire will be my triode mode, and the blue wire will be the ultralinear. Ultralinear is going to the yellow wire. The yellow wire is the second one here over. So that's the blue line. Blue line is going to the yellow wire, so we're just going to solder it down to the yellow wire. And the red wire is for triode, which is the one next to it, which is this one over, or sorry, the green wire is going to the red wire. Green wire is our ultralinear, or triode, I should say. Blue wires are ultralinear. So that one goes to that pin. And the switched line goes over here to the resistor. And the resistor on this one, I can see it. It's right behind the tube socket here. If I turn it around a bit, it's right there. So the red wire is going to go to that spot, right down there. So I'll take the red wire, put the red wire to the resistor. And we do the same for the other channel. Okay, triode is my green. So that's going to go to this one. Ultralinear is my blue. It's going to go to the next one over to it. And my switched line is going to go to the resistor, which ends up on pin 4. that is the modification. Now I've got a switch. Switch is down at the back. It's in triode mode. Up it's in ultralinear. Now if I wanted to switch it to pentrode, all I'd have to do is just switch the blue lead from that pin over to that one. And if I wanted to put a second switch in to switch between ultralinear and pentrode, I could just put another switch in to toggle between that and that. So it's relatively easy to do. I don't know that I'm going to need the pentrode mode. I think ultralinear has a little better sound, a little more full sound, but again, it's open to experiment. It's easy enough to change. I'm just going to get some zap ties here, and we're going to tie down some of these wires, get them out of the way, and then I can get the cabinet assembled and we can get this thing tested. AC wires separated from the DC wires. I'm ready to put the top on it. So top cabinet. Forget how this thing goes on. I think it just slides down like this. Yes, it just slides down on the top like that, and then there's a bunch of screws that go in the bottom. Make sure that we're not going to catch any wires in here too. And there's the front faceplate that slides on the front like that, and it is attached with a couple of screws that go in the bottom. Here, actually, it's not attached with screws. There's two screws here that already hold it in place. We just tighten these down, and there's looks like there's one more that goes in the middle here. Last thing that needs to go on is the volume control, and I'm going to need a hex key for this. Let's put the knob on. Tighten it on there. Okay, there's the volume knob. Nice. First I'll reinstall the small signal tubes. And now the power tubes. Now we're ready for testing. Okay, I'm going to play some stuff here. I'm not playing it off my DAT machine. I was listening to the Beatles on there, but I really can't play that. But I will play something from the Music Bakery here. This is royalty-free content. I'll play it on these speakers. I'm going to move this amp in the house in a bit and put it on my good speakers. This is in triode mode, and the nice thing about this is I can switch this on the fly. So we can hear the difference in the sound, and really ultralinear adds more bass to it, and it makes it louder. But here's one here. Let's take a listen to this track. almost flat out, by the way, because it's only 4 watts per channel in this mode. Play it again. I'm going to switch it to ultra linear. So let's take it right back to the beginning. And this is in ultra linear mode now. Okay, now these are very small speakers. These are old little PSP mites, so they're only I think a 4-inch drive or 2-way speakers. I'm gonna take this thing in the house, hook it up to my Altec Lansings, and we'll see how it does there. I'm gonna play the same song that I played when I tested the other amplifier. It's called The Mentor. It's by the Music Bakery, Jack Walden-Mayer and his orchestra. I'm gonna play this twice. I'm gonna play it once in Triode mode, and then I'll play it again in ultra linear mode. Let's take a listen. This is The Mentor in Triode mode. Okay, what we just heard is we just heard it, the Mentor recorded with the microphone on the camera in Triode mode. I'm going to flip the switch on the back now to ultra linear, and we're going to play the same track again. If I can find it here. Where did it go? There it is. After listening to that same track both times, I have to say that I do prefer the second one, the sound of the amplifier in ultra linear mode. It just tends to my ears to have a little more full sound. Now, some people may disagree, and that's why I wired it with a switch so that I could switch it back and forth and listen to it. But after listening to that initial track on these speakers, I have to say that I think the ultralinear mode has a little more punch to it. Something I might try is I might try wiring the other half of the switch to Pentrode mode so I can do an A/B comparison between ultralinear and Pentrode. But for now, I'm going to leave it the way it is wired. Love it. It sounds fantastic. What I should do is I should do a comparison. Maybe we'll do that on a future video because I haven't wired it up. I've just got it hooked up to my my Crackberry right now through its wireless music gateway. But this does have a secondary input, and what I might do, in fact I probably will do this, is I'll take the outputs that are currently feeding my VU meters here, and I'll put them into the secondary input. That way I can put the same music through both my Luxman, which is a hybrid amp. It's got 2 tubes in the front. You can see them here. This is 30 odd years old though. I can put the output through the Luxman and I can switch it. Now, the way my Luxman is wired, this has been modified too. I have this thing wired as a loop through. So when I turn on the Luxman, if I hit the B speaker switch, it will, I've got the B speaker outputs are actually wired as an input. When the power is off, whatever is going into what is hooked up to the terminals on the back of the Luxman to the B input is fed through a relay back out the A output to drive the speakers. Because I used to use this with my old Macintosh, and if I wanted to use the Mac, I didn't want to be switching speaker leads all the time. So I modified this thing about, I don't know, 20 odd years ago, so that when it was turned off, I could pull the sound from my Macintosh amp to my speakers. But if I wanted to get a little more power, because this obviously has got a lot more kick to it, this is 60 watts per channel, MOSFET output, all I had to do was turn the power on. And once the speaker relay kicks in, it will switch my speakers there to this one. But the B switch, I rewired the switch with a relay. So I could switch it off, I could leave this on, I could switch the B speaker switch off, and that would switch it back to the other amplifier. So I am actually able to, once I hook it up to my computer, for example, or my turntable for vinyl, I can do an A/B comparison. I can set the volume the same, and I can switch from one amp to the other. We'll do that on a future video. That's it for this one. We'll catch you in the next one. And again, there will be another one where I do an A/B comparison between this and this. Stay tuned.